The knock came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Through the peephole, Maria Santos saw a little girl clutching a torn backpack. The child was shivering in the Chicago wind. Behind her stood a well-dressed woman with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "Please," the woman whispered. "I know this is crazy, but I need someone to watch Emma for just one night." Maria's rent was 3 weeks overdue. Her electricity had been shut off that morning. She had exactly $12 to her name. Taking in a stranger's child could mean losing her apartment, her job, everything she'd fought to keep. But something in that little girl's eyes reminded her of her own daughter. 6 months later, when the black Mercedes pulled up to her crumbling apartment building, Maria would remember that moment. The night everything changed. But not in the way she expected. Maria Santos thought she'd hit rock bottom before, but Tuesday morning proved her wrong. At 5:30 a.m., she stood in her kitchen, counting cereal pieces into 2 bowls. Jaden, her 12-year-old son, got 18 pieces. Sophia, 9, got 16. The milk was watered down until it looked more like cloudy water than nutrition. "Mom, I'm still hungry," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. Maria's heart clenched. She poured half her own portion into Sophia's bowl. "There you go, baby." Jaden noticed immediately. He always did. Without a word, he slid 3 pieces of cereal from his bowl to his sister's. These were the moments that broke Maria's heart and rebuilt it simultaneously. This was life in their 3rd-floor walk-up in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood. The elevator had been broken for 8 months. The heat worked when it wanted to. The neighbors she'd known for 8 years were disappearing one by one, priced out by gentrification. Maria had 2 jobs. Night cleaning at Northwestern Hospital paid $14 an hour. Better than minimum wage, but those shifts ran from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. She'd come home exhausted, sleep for 3 hours, then drag herself to the corner bodega for her day shift. Mr. Rodriguez, the bodega owner, was kind enough. He paid her $8.50 an hour and let her take expired food home. Sometimes he'd slip an extra 20 into her paycheck when times were especially tough. But kindness doesn't pay rent. The rent had jumped from $900 to $1,400 in 6 months. Neighborhood improvements, the landlord called it. Fresh paint in the hallway. New locks on the front door. Translation: they wanted the long-term tenants gone. Maria had received 3 eviction notices. The latest one was taped to her door, impossible to ignore. She needed $2,100 by Friday, or they'd be out on the street. She'd done the math 100 times. Even working both jobs, pulling 16-hour days, she was still $600 short. The gap between what she earned and what life cost kept growing wider. "Mom, my shoes are coming apart again," Jaden said, lifting his foot to show where the sole had separated from the upper. "I'll fix them tonight," Maria promised, though she'd already used an entire roll of duct tape on those shoes. This was the mathematics of poverty. Every dollar stretched until it screamed. Every decision weighed against survival. Coffee was a luxury she'd given up months ago. Willpower had to be enough. But Maria wasn't alone. Mrs. Chen from 2B watched the kids during her hospital shifts. Never asked for payment. Always had a pot of rice ready if the kids were hungry. Mr. Rodriguez at the bodega let her take the day-old bread and bruised fruit. Ms. Williams, Jaden's teacher, discreetly provided school supplies. These people were her lifeline, a network of kindness that kept her family afloat. "Mommy always said, Dios aprieta pero no ahorca," Maria murmured to herself as she watched her children get ready for school. God squeezes, but doesn't strangle. Her mother's words, whispered in Spanish when times were hard, but sometimes it felt pretty close to strangling. The morning routine was a choreographed dance of scarcity. Sophia's school clothes were patched and repatched. Jaden's backpack held together with safety pins. Maria ironed their clothes on the kitchen table, making sure they looked presentable even if they didn't have much. "You look beautiful, mija," she told Sophia, smoothing her daughter's hair. You too, Mom, Sophia replied, and Maria's heart broke a little more. The truth was, Maria looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes from too little sleep, clothes that had seen better years, hands rough from cleaning chemicals and constant work. But her children still thought she was beautiful. That afternoon, Maria walked to the corner store to buy a single can of soup for dinner. The cashier, a teenager with kind eyes, pretended not to notice when Maria counted out exact change in quarters and dimes. "Have a blessed day, Mrs. Santos," the girl said softly. "You too, baby." These small interactions sustained her, dignity preserved in moments of understanding. People who saw her as human, not just another struggling single mother. The bus ride home cost $2.50. Maria walked instead, saving money and burning calories she couldn't afford to lose. The November wind cut through her thin jacket, but she'd learned to embrace discomfort. That evening, as she helped Jaden with homework and braided Sophia's hair, Maria felt the weight of her situation settling on her shoulders. 3 days until eviction. No plan B. No family to call. Just her, her children, and the stubborn hope that somehow things would work out. She'd been poor before, grew up poor. But having children made poverty different, sharper, more desperate. When you're hungry, you can ignore it. When your babies are hungry, it consumes you. As she tucked Sophia into bed, her daughter asked, "Mom, are we going to be okay?" "Always, baby," Maria whispered. "As long as we have each other, we're going to be okay." It was a promise she hoped she could keep. But Tuesday night would test that promise in ways she never imagined. The woman at her door was crying, but it wasn't the kind of crying Maria recognized. Maria had just climbed 3 flights of stairs after her hospital shift. Her feet ached. Her uniform smelled like disinfectant. All she wanted was to collapse into bed for 3 hours before her bodega shift started. Then came the knock. Through the peephole, she saw them. A woman in an expensive coat, her makeup smeared by tears, a little girl with curly hair and frightened eyes, holding a backpack like it contained everything she owned. "Please," the woman whispered when Maria cracked the door. "I know how this looks, but I'm not crazy." Maria kept the chain lock engaged. In this neighborhood, you learn to be careful. "What do you want?" "I need someone to watch Emma for just one night." The woman's voice shook. "I'm Catherine. I found your address through a church referral network." Maria glanced at the child. Emma was mixed race, maybe 8 years old. Her clothes were expensive but wrinkled. She hadn't said a word, just stared at Maria with eyes that had seen too much. "Lady, I don't know you," Maria said, "and I don't babysit strangers." "I'm fleeing domestic violence," Catherine's words came out in a rush. "My husband has connections. He's tracking my credit cards, my phone. If he finds us tonight, we're both dead." Something in Catherine's voice made Maria pause. She'd heard that tone before, in her own voice, years ago, when she'd left Emma and Sophia's father. "I have a protective custody hearing tomorrow morning," Catherine continued. "I just need somewhere safe for one night." Maria looked at Emma again. The child was shivering, not from cold, but from fear. Her small hand gripped her mother's coat like a lifeline. "I can pay," Catherine said, pulling out a roll of cash. $500 just for one night." Maria's breath caught. $500 was almost a quarter of what she needed for rent. But taking in strangers was dangerous. What if Catherine was lying? What if this was some kind of setup? "How do I know you're not setting me up?" Maria asked. Catherine met her eyes. "Because desperate people recognize each other." The words hit Maria like a physical blow. This woman with her expensive clothes and manicured nails was desperate. Really desperate. Maria could see it in the way she held her daughter. The way she kept glancing over her shoulder. "I've been to 3 shelters," Catherine continued. "They're all full, and he knows where they are. The church gave me a list of safe houses, but yours was the only one that answered." Maria hadn't answered. She'd been asleep, but her phone was always on, in case the kids' school called. "Please," Catherine whispered. "I have nowhere else to go." Maria looked at Emma again. The child reminded her of Sophia at that age. Quiet, observant, carrying burdens too heavy for small shoulders. "Mom?" Sophia's voice came from behind her. "Who's there?" Maria turned. Sophia stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. Jaden appeared beside her, instantly alert. "Go back to bed," Maria said softly. But Sophia had already seen Emma. The two girls stared at each other through the crack in the door. "She's scared," Sophia said simply. Children see things adults try to hide. Sophia could read Emma's fear like a book written in a language only kids understood. Maria's mind raced. $500 would save them from eviction. But what if Catherine's husband showed up? What if there was violence? What if child services found out she was housing strangers? She thought about her mother's words. "Cuando alguien necesita ayuda, no preguntas por qué, solo ayudas." When someone needs help, you don't ask why. You just help. But her mother had never faced eviction, never had to choose between kindness and survival. "I work 2 jobs," Maria said. "I can't watch her during the day." "I'll figure something out," Catherine replied quickly. "Please, just tonight." Maria looked at the cash in Catherine's hand. $500. Enough to buy groceries for a month. Enough to pay the electric bill. Enough to keep hope alive a little longer. But it was Emma's eyes that decided it. Those eyes that looked like Sophia's. Like her own, years ago. "One night," Maria said, unlocking the chain. "That's it." Catherine sagged with relief. "Thank you. God bless you." As Maria let them in, she caught Catherine's scent. Expensive perfume mixed with fear sweat. This woman came from a different world, but tonight they shared the same desperation. "Emma can sleep in Sophia's bed," Maria said. "Sophia can bunk with me." "I don't want to impose," Catherine started. "You're not imposing. You're surviving." Emma spoke for the first time. "Thank you, Miss Maria." Her voice was small but clear, polite, well-raised. This child came from privilege, but privilege hadn't protected her from fear. As Maria prepared makeshift sleeping arrangements, she wondered what she'd gotten herself into. But the $500 felt solid in her pocket. Real. Immediate. What Maria didn't know was that saying yes would cost her everything she had left. The first morning changed everything. Maria woke to the sound of laughter. Real laughter, the kind that had been missing from her apartment for months. She found Emma and Sophia in the kitchen, speaking in hushed Spanish. "Emma knows Spanish," Sophia announced. "Her grandma taught her." Catherine sat at the small table, looking lost. Her expensive coat hung over a chair like a costume she no longer needed. "I made coffee," Catherine said quietly. "I hope that's okay." Maria poured herself a cup. Real coffee, not the instant powder she'd been using. Catherine had somehow found the good stuff Maria kept hidden for emergencies. "How did you sleep?" Maria asked. "I didn't," Catherine admitted. "But Emma did. First time in weeks." Emma was helping Sophia pour cereal, her small hands steady and careful. She moved like a child who'd learned to be useful, to earn her place. "I need to call my work," Maria said. "Tell them I'm sick." Catherine looked up sharply. "You don't have to do that." "I can't leave Emma alone." Maria reached for her phone. "And you have court today." The call to the bodega was difficult. Mr. Rodriguez's voice carried disappointment through the speaker. "Maria, you missed yesterday too. I need reliable workers." "I know. Family emergency. Just today, I promise." Family emergency felt like the right words. Sometimes family isn't blood. Sometimes it's who shows up when you need them. After Catherine left for court, Maria found herself alone with 3 children instead of 2. Emma was quiet, but helpful. She made beds without being asked. She helped Jaden with homework. She spoke to Sophia in Spanish about things that made them both giggle. "Where's Emma's dad?" Sophia asked during lunch. "Sometimes dads aren't safe," Maria said carefully. "So moms have to be extra brave." Sophia nodded like this made perfect sense. Children adapt to complicated truths faster than adults. That afternoon, Mrs. Chen knocked on the door. Her sharp eyes took in Emma immediately. "New granddaughter?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Friend of Sophia's," Maria replied. Mrs. Chen nodded. She understood without explanation. That's how survival networks worked. Questions weren't always necessary. Catherine returned at 6 p.m., exhausted and shaky. "The hearing is postponed," she said. "My lawyer says it could be another week." Maria felt something cold settle in her stomach. A week meant missing more work. A week meant using the $500 for groceries and utilities instead of rent. "I can find somewhere else," Catherine offered quickly. "No," Maria said. "Emma's happy here. Sophia's happy. We'll figure it out." But figuring it out proved expensive. On Thursday, the landlord showed up for a surprise inspection. "Mrs. Santos," he said, his voice carrying authority, "who are these additional occupants?" Maria's heart pounded. "Temporary guests." "Your lease specifies no subletters, no long-term guests." "They're not paying rent," Maria said. "Doesn't matter. This violates your agreement." That night, Maria found a new eviction notice taped to her door. Instead of Friday, she now had 48 hours. The landlord had accelerated the timeline. Catherine cried when Maria told her, "This is my fault. I'm ruining your life." "You're not ruining anything," Maria said firmly. "The system's already broken. You just happened to need help when it broke a little more." By Friday, the consequences were piling up. Maria's hours at the bodega had been cut. Her supervisor at the hospital called about her recent absences. "We need to discuss your reliability," the supervisor said. "I understand," Maria replied, though she didn't understand anything anymore. Saturday brought a social worker to the door. Someone had called in a tip about child endangerment and overcrowding. The woman was professional but cold. She interviewed Jaden and Sophia separately, asked questions about sleeping arrangements, food security, appropriate supervision. "Mrs. Santos," she said finally, "I'm concerned about your housing situation." "We're fine," Maria insisted. 4 people in a 1-bedroom apartment isn't appropriate. "It's temporary." "How temporary?" Maria didn't have an answer. That evening, she sat at her kitchen table, counting and recounting her money. The $500 from Catherine was already spent. Groceries, electric bill, gas for the stove. Money disappeared like water through broken fingers. The math was brutal. Even if she got her full hours back, even if the eviction was reversed, she was drowning. "Mom?" Jaden appeared beside her. "Are we going to be homeless?" The question she'd been dreading, the fear that lived in all their hearts. "No, baby. Mama's going to figure this out." But privately, Maria wasn't sure anymore. Sunday morning, Catherine made breakfast for everyone. Real breakfast. Eggs, bacon, fresh orange juice. The apartment smelled like a home instead of a shelter. "You don't have to do this," Maria said. "I want to," Catherine replied. "It's the least I can do." Emma and Sophia sat side by side, sharing stories and secrets. They'd become sisters in a week. Blood couldn't have bonded them faster than shared understanding. "Emma's teaching me French," Sophia announced. "And Sophia's teaching me how to braid friendship bracelets," Emma added. Watching them, Maria realized something important. This wasn't just about helping Catherine anymore. These children were healing each other. Jaden had taken on a protective role with Emma, walking her to the corner store, showing her the best hiding spots in the building, teaching her the unspoken rules of their neighborhood. She's smart, he told Maria. Smarter than most adults. Children recognize resilience in each other. They form alliances that transcend circumstances. That afternoon, Catherine received a mysterious phone call. She stepped into the hallway to take it, speaking in low, urgent tones. When she returned, her expression was different, determined, almost excited. "My lawyer thinks we'll get good news soon," she said. Maria nodded, but something felt off. Catherine's entire demeanor had shifted, like she'd remembered something important, something she'd been hiding. Monday morning, the eviction notice felt heavier in Maria's hands. 24 hours left. She'd used her last savings on groceries for 4 instead of 3. "I should leave," Catherine said quietly. "I'm making everything worse." "You're not leaving," Maria said firmly. "Emma needs stability. Sophia needs her friend. But your apartment, we'll figure it out." These were the words of a woman who'd run out of options, but not out of hope. Maria Santos had decided that some things mattered more than security. Some choices were worth the risk. What she didn't know was that her choice to stay committed would change everything. The eviction notice came on a Thursday, but that was just the beginning. Maria stared at the paper taped to her door. Final notice. 24 hours to vacate. No exceptions. The landlord's signature looked triumphant, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Mrs. Santos?" Mrs. Chen's voice was soft behind her. "You okay?" Maria turned. Her neighbor's kind face was creased with worry. In her hands, Mrs. Chen held a similar notice. "They're evicting you too?" Maria asked. "Whole building. New management wants us all gone." Mrs. Chen's voice carried years of tired acceptance. "My grandson says they'll turn these into luxury condos." Maria felt the world tilt. Mrs. Chen had lived here for 15 years. She was the building's grandmother, the woman who watched everyone's children, who brought soup when people were sick. "Where will you go?" Maria asked. "My son in Chinatown. You?" Maria didn't have an answer. That afternoon, the consequences accelerated like dominoes falling. Mr. Rodriguez called from the bodega. "Maria, I'm sorry, I have to let you go." The words hit like a physical blow. "But I've only missed 3 days. Corporate says I need reliable workers. You've been calling in sick too often. My family situation is temporary. I'm sorry, Maria. Really." The line went dead. $8.50 an hour, gone. 20 hours a week, gone. The small buffer between survival and disaster, gone. That evening, a woman in a crisp suit knocked on Maria's door. Business card in hand, smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Santos? I'm Jennifer Walsh from Child Protective Services." Maria's blood turned to ice. "What can I do for you?" "We received a report about overcrowding and possible neglect. May I come in?" The inspection was thorough and humiliating. Jennifer Walsh counted beds, checked the refrigerator, examined sleeping arrangements with the precision of someone cataloging failures. "How many people are currently living here?" she asked. 4, Maria answered honestly. "In a 1-bedroom apartment?" "Temporarily." "How temporarily?" Maria didn't have an answer that wouldn't make things worse. Jennifer interviewed Jaden in the hallway. Maria could hear fragments through the thin door. "Do you feel safe here?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are you getting enough food?" "Yes, ma'am." "Who is Emma?" A pause. Then Jaden's careful voice. "Sophia's friend." When Jennifer interviewed Sophia, the questions were softer, but no less dangerous. "Sweetie, is your mom taking good care of you?" "My mom is the best mom in the world." "Are you sharing your bed?" "Emma has bad dreams. I help her feel better." Children's honesty could save or damn them. Finally, Jennifer spoke with Maria privately. "Mrs. Santos, I'm concerned about your housing stability." "We're managing." "Eviction notices suggest otherwise. and housing unrelated children without proper documentation. They're friends of the family. For how long? As long as they need to be. Jennifer's pen moved across her notepad. Each word felt like a nail in a coffin. I'll need to file a report. Someone will follow up within 72 hours. After she left, Maria sat on her couch, head in her hands. Catherine found her there an hour later. What happened? Catherine asked. Everything's falling apart. Maria's voice was hollow. I lost my job. We're being evicted tomorrow. Child Services thinks I'm an unfit mother. Catherine knelt beside her. This is my fault. No, it's not. Maria looked up. The system was already broken. You just needed help when it broke a little more. But the words felt empty. Maria had gambled everything on kindness, and she was losing. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked to the window and looked out at the neighborhood she'd called home for 8 years. Buildings she'd watched her children grow up around. Corner stores where they knew her name. Neighbors who'd become family. All of it disappearing. In the morning, she found Catherine packing quietly. We're leaving, Catherine said. Today. This has gone too far. Where will you go? I'll figure something out. Emma appeared in the doorway, confused and scared. Are we leaving Sophia? She asked. Catherine knelt down. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that hurt, but they're necessary. I don't want to leave Sophia. Neither did Sophia. The girls clung to each other like lifelines, tears streaming down their faces. It's not fair, Sophia sobbed. Life isn't fair, baby, Maria said, her own voice breaking. But love is real, and you two will always have that. As Catherine loaded their few belongings into a taxi, she pressed something into Maria's hand. Emergency contact, she said. If you ever need anything. Maria looked at the card. Dr. Catherine Wells Morrison, Northwestern University Medical Center, Department of Child Psychology. You're a doctor? Maria asked. Catherine met her eyes. I'm someone who believes in people like you. The taxi pulled away. Emma's face pressed against the back window, small hand waving goodbye. Maria stood on the sidewalk, eviction notice in one hand, business card in the other. Everything she'd tried to save was gone. But something about that business card felt important, like a puzzle piece she didn't understand yet. On moving day, Catherine made a phone call that would change everything. Maria was packing their life into cardboard boxes when her phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Santos? This is attorney Rebecca Chen from Legal Aid Society. Maria's heart sank. More official business. More complications. We need to discuss your eviction case. Dr. Wells Morrison contacted us about irregularities in your landlord's practices. Dr. Wells Morrison? Catherine Wells Morrison. She says you helped her family during a crisis. Maria sat down heavily. She's really a doctor? Prominent child psychiatrist, professor at Northwestern University. She's been documenting housing discrimination cases for a research project. The puzzle pieces started shifting. Catherine's educated way of speaking, her comfort with legal terminology, the mysterious phone calls. Can you meet us tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Attorney Chen asked. I don't understand what's happening. Dr. Wells Morrison will explain everything. The next day, Maria walked into the legal aid office carrying everything she owned in 2 grocery bags. Jaden and Sophia flanked her, confused but hopeful. Catherine was already there, but she looked different, professional, confident. Her expensive coat made sense now. Maria, Catherine stood up. Thank you for coming. You lied to me, Maria said quietly. I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything. Catherine's voice was gentle. I was fleeing domestic violence. That part was completely true. Attorney Chen spread documents across the table. Your landlord violated multiple housing regulations. illegal rent increases, discriminatory eviction practices, failure to maintain basic utilities. What does that mean? Maria asked. It means you have grounds for a lawsuit, Catherine said, and I've been documenting everything. Maria stared at her. Why? Because what happened to you happens to thousands of families, single mothers, immigrants, people of color. I'm writing a book about systemic poverty and the people who show kindness despite having nothing. Catherine pulled out a thick folder. I've been recording our conversations with your permission retroactively, taking photos of living conditions, documenting the community support networks that keep families like yours alive. You were studying us? Maria felt betrayed. No, I was learning from you. Catherine's eyes were intense. Maria, you saved my life. But you also taught me something about courage I'd never understood. Attorney Chen interrupted. The landlord's company has agreed to settle. They're facing a class action lawsuit for discriminatory practices across 12 buildings. Settle for what? Enough to pay your back rent, moving expenses, and damages for illegal eviction. Maria felt dizzy. How much? $15,000. The number hung in the air like a miracle. But there's more, Catherine said. My publisher wanted to buy your story, our story, as a book about American poverty and unexpected kindness. I don't understand. Catherine leaned forward. You'd be co-author. Equal partnership. The advance is substantial. How substantial? $50,000, plus royalties. Maria's world tilted. 6 weeks ago, she couldn't afford milk. Now strangers were offering life-changing money. Why would anyone want to read about me? Because your story matters, Catherine said. Because you represent something beautiful about humanity that people need to remember. Sophia tugged on Maria's sleeve. Mom, does this mean Emma can come home? Catherine smiled. Emma's been asking the same question. That evening, Catherine explained everything. Her real name was Dr. Catherine Wells Morrison. She held 2 PhD degrees from Harvard. She'd been studying poverty and resilience for 15 years. My ex-husband is Judge Morrison, federal court. When I left him, I lost access to everything. My house, my car, my research funding, everything was in his name. So you really were desperate, Maria said. Completely. And you were the only person who helped without asking questions. Catherine had spent the weeks after leaving Maria's apartment working with legal advocates, housing rights organizations, and publishers. She'd connected Maria's case to a broader pattern of discrimination. The church referral network was real, Catherine continued. But I specifically asked for families facing eviction. I wanted to understand what happens to people in crisis. And you found me. I found someone extraordinary pretending to be ordinary. The next week brought reporters. Local news wanted to interview Maria about housing discrimination. National publications wanted quotes for articles about gentrification. I'm not comfortable with this, Maria told Catherine. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, Catherine assured her. But your voice could help other families. Maria thought about Mrs. Chen, now living in her son's crowded apartment, about other neighbors who'd been priced out, about single mothers making impossible choices between rent and food. What exactly would this book say? The truth. That kindness exists in places people don't expect, that the people with the least often give the most, that the system is broken, but humans aren't. And people would read that? People are hungry for real stories about real people, touching stories that remind them what matters. Catherine pulled out a contract. Think about it. No pressure. But this could change everything for your family. Maria stared at the papers. Life stories had value, apparently. Her life story had value. Emma misses Sophia, Catherine said quietly. Sophia misses Emma, too. Maybe they don't have to miss each other anymore. For the first time in months, Maria allowed herself to hope. The Mercedes wasn't what Maria expected, but neither was the woman who stepped out of it. 6 months after that first desperate knock, Catherine returned to Pilsen. But this time she arrived in style. Black Mercedes sedan, leather seats, driver in uniform. Maria watched from her new apartment window. Same building, same neighborhood, but everything had changed. The settlement money had allowed her to negotiate with a different landlord. Fair rent, actual heat, working elevator. "Mom, Catherine's here," Sophia called, pressing her face against the glass. Emma emerged from the passenger seat like sunlight breaking through clouds. 6 months had transformed her from a frightened child into a confident little girl with bright eyes and quick laughter. The reunion between Emma and Sophia was everything Maria had hoped for. Tears, hugs, rapid-fire Spanish conversations about everything they'd missed. "You got taller," Sophia observed seriously. "You got braver," Emma replied. Children see growth differently than adults. Catherine carried a leather briefcase and wore the confident smile of someone whose life had stabilized, but her eyes still held gratitude when she looked at Maria. "You look good," Catherine said. "You look like yourself," Maria replied. It was true. The desperate woman from that winter night had been replaced by someone comfortable in her own skin. Success suited Catherine, but more than that, safety suited her. "I brought something for you," Catherine said, opening her briefcase. Inside were legal documents, photographs, and a thick manuscript bound in blue. "Our book," Catherine announced. "The publisher loves it." Maria picked up the manuscript. The title page read, "When Strangers Become Family, A Story of Kindness in Crisis," by Dr. Catherine Wells Morrison and Maria Santos. Seeing her name in print felt surreal. Maria Santos, co-author. Maria Santos, whose story mattered enough to publish. "The advance checks are ready," Catherine continued. 50,000 for you, 50,000 for me. Equal partners, like we agreed. $50,000. Maria still couldn't quite believe it. Plus speaking engagements. Universities want to hear our story. Social justice organizations, community groups. Catherine pulled out a calendar filled with dates. Northwestern University next month, University of Chicago in October, the National Housing Justice Conference in December. People want to hear from me? They want to hear from someone who understands poverty from the inside. Someone who chose kindness when it was dangerous. Maria flipped through the manuscript. She recognized her own words, conversations Catherine had recorded and transcribed. But seeing them on paper made them feel important, official. "There's something else," Catherine said carefully. "The speaking fees are substantial. 5,000 per event, sometimes more." Maria sat down. The numbers were overwhelming. 6 months ago, she'd been counting cereal pieces. Now people wanted to pay her thousands of dollars to tell her story. "I don't know how to be a public speaker," Maria said. "You know how to tell the truth. That's all anyone wants to hear." Emma and Sophia had moved to the kitchen, making friendship bracelets with supplies Catherine had brought. Their chatter filled the apartment with joy Maria hadn't heard in years. "How's Emma doing?" Maria asked. "Thriving. Therapy helped her process the trauma, and she talks about Sophia constantly. They're good for each other, like their mothers." Catherine was right. The friendship between the adults had grown as strong as the bond between the children. Different backgrounds, different educations, but shared understanding of what survival required. "I have a confession," Catherine said. "The book is already getting attention. 3 movie producers have called about adaptation rights." Movie producers? Hollywood loves stories about unlikely friendships, Black stories that show resilience and community, real-life stories that prove kindness matters. The possibilities felt infinite and terrifying. "I need time to think," Maria said. "Of course. But there's one more thing." Catherine's smile turned mischievous. Remember Mrs. Chen? Maria nodded. Her former neighbors had struggled since the eviction, crowded into her son's small apartment in Chinatown. The housing settlement included provisions for displaced tenants. Mrs. Chen qualified for relocation assistance and damages. How much? Enough to help her son buy a house with space for everyone. Maria felt tears starting. Really? The landlord's discrimination affected 43 families. They're all getting compensation. This was bigger than Maria's individual story. This was justice spreading outward like ripples in water. That evening, Catherine stayed for dinner. Simple meal, nothing fancy, but the apartment felt complete with both families present. I keep thinking about that night, Catherine said as they watched the girls play. What if you'd said no? I almost did, Maria admitted. What changed your mind? Emma's eyes. They looked like Sophia's when we left her father. Catherine understood. They'd both escaped domestic violence. They'd both faced impossible choices with children watching. The book publishers want to know if there will be a sequel, Catherine said. Sequel? What happens next? How success changes people. Whether friendships survive transformation. Maria looked around her apartment. New furniture, courtesy of the settlement. Full refrigerator, courtesy of the book advance. Children laughing, courtesy of choices made in desperation. I don't want to lose who I am, Maria said quietly. You won't, I promise. How do you know? Because you're still choosing to help people, even when you don't have to anymore. It was true. Maria had been volunteering with the housing rights organization, helping other families facing eviction, translating at legal meetings, using her experience to guide others through the system. The speaking engagements, Maria said, would they really help people? Your voice reaches audiences mine can't. You represent something authentic that people need to hear. Maria thought about all the single mothers working multiple jobs, all the families choosing between rent and food, all the children wearing duct-taped shoes with dignity. If I do this, I want to use the platform for something bigger than just our story. Like what? Housing justice, immigration rights, support for single mothers, real change, not just inspiration. Catherine smiled. Now you sound like someone ready to change the world. As the evening wound down, Emma hugged Maria tightly. Thank you for saving us, she whispered. You saved us too, baby, Maria whispered back. Success felt different than Maria had imagined. Not just individual triumph, but community transformation. Not just escape from poverty, but tools to help others escape too. 6 months later, Maria Santos learned the hardest lesson of all. Standing at the podium of Northwestern University's packed auditorium, Maria looked out at 700 faces. Students, professors, community leaders, all waiting to hear her story. My name is Maria Santos, she began, her voice steady. 18 months ago, I was 3 weeks behind on rent, working 2 minimum wage jobs, and facing eviction with my 2 children. The audience was silent, attentive. Tonight, I want to tell you about a knock on my door that changed everything, but not in the way you might expect. In the front row, Catherine sat with Emma and Sophia. Both girls wore matching friendship bracelets, symbols of a bond that had transformed 2 families. The woman at my door was crying, Maria continued, but it wasn't the kind of crying I recognized. As Maria told their story, she watched faces in the audience change. Recognition, understanding. Some people wiped away tears. She spoke about the mathematics of poverty, the way $500 could feel like salvation and disappear like morning mist. The choice between helping others and protecting yourself. I almost said no, Maria admitted. And sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had. After her speech, the questions came fast. How do you help others when you're struggling yourself? What advice do you have for people facing housing insecurity? How can privileged people support their communities without being patronizing? Maria answered each question thoughtfully. These weren't just academic discussions anymore. They were conversations about real change. Later, at the book signing, people shared their own stories. A single mother from Chicago's South Side, an immigrant family facing deportation, a college student working 3 jobs to stay enrolled. "Your story gives me hope," one woman said, holding a copy of their book. "Your story gives me courage," said another. This was the ripple effect Catherine had talked about. One story inspiring others to tell theirs. One act of kindness multiplying across communities. Back home in Pilsen, Maria's apartment had become an unofficial community center. Families facing eviction came for advice. Single mothers shared resources and childcare. Mrs. Chen taught cooking classes in Maria's kitchen. "You're changing the neighborhood," Jaden observed one evening. "We're changing it together," Maria corrected. The book had been on bestseller lists for 3 months. Movie rights had sold to a major studio. Maria's speaking engagements were booked through next year. But the real success was quieter, more personal. Emma spent every weekend with Sophia. Their friendship had evolved into something closer to sisterhood. They planned to attend the same college, room together, maybe start a non-profit for children in crisis. Catherine had become Maria's business partner and closest friend. They were already working on a second book about community organizing and grassroots justice. "We make a good team," Catherine said during one of their writing sessions. "We always did," Maria replied. The housing rights organization they'd started had helped 12 families avoid eviction. The legal fund had expanded to include immigration cases and workers' rights. Local news stations called it the Pilsen model, community members supporting each other while working for systemic change. "It's not just charity," Maria explained to reporters. "It's justice. It's recognizing that everyone deserves dignity and opportunity." One Tuesday evening, exactly 2 years after Catherine's first knock, another desperate family appeared at Maria's door. A young father with twin daughters, evicted that morning, nowhere to go. "I heard you might be able to help," he said hopefully. Maria looked at his children, 5 years old, scared, holding stuffed animals like lifelines. "Come in," she said without hesitation. "Some lessons don't change. Kindness remains necessary. Community remains essential. Hope remains possible." The young father's name was Marcus. His daughters were Destiny and Hope. His story was different from Catherine's, but equally urgent. Job loss, medical bills, landlord retaliation, the familiar mathematics of crisis. "I can pay when I get back on my feet," Marcus offered. "We'll figure it out together," Maria said. Sophia and Emma immediately took the twins under their protection. Children teaching children how to be resilient. The cycle of kindness continuing. "Are you sure about this?" Catherine asked privately. "I'm sure about who I am," Maria replied. Success hadn't changed her core values. If anything, it had amplified them. Now she had resources to match her compassion. The next morning, Marcus was helping Jaden fix bikes in the courtyard. Destiny and Hope were learning Spanish from Sophia and Emma, Mrs. Chen was teaching them all to make dumplings. This was what community looked like. Messy, complicated, beautiful, necessary. Maria's phone rang. Another interview request, another speaking engagement, another opportunity to tell their story to audiences who needed to hear it. "Yes," she said to the caller. "I'll be there." Because every audience contained someone who needed permission to be kind, someone who needed to know that helping others, even when you have little to give, creates ripples that can change the world. "I didn't save Catherine and Emma," Maria always ended her speeches. "We saved each other." The applause would follow, but more importantly, conversations would start. People would go home and look at their communities differently. They'd notice the single mothers working multiple jobs, the families facing eviction, the children wearing duct-taped shoes with dignity. And maybe, just maybe, they'd choose kindness when it mattered most. True kindness isn't about having enough to give. It's about giving when you have nothing left to spare. That's the lesson Maria Santos learned. That's the story she continues to tell. That's the change she continues to create. One conversation, one family, one act of courage at a time. What would you do if desperation knocked on your door tonight? Share this story if it moved you. Tell us in the comments about a time when someone's kindness changed your life. Subscribe for more touching stories about real people making extraordinary choices in ordinary moments. Because these Black stories, these life stories, these real-life stories of resilience and community, they matter, they inspire, and they remind us that the most powerful force in the world is still human kindness. Your story matters too. Share it. Live it. Let it ripple outward.
Every time someone stands up, speaks out, or refuses to be erased, a new story is born. At Beat Stories, we archive that courage. Subscribe now and help us keep these moments alive, because the more we share them, the harder they are to ignore.